No, you're being bad.
I'm being fast. See, that's what we're coming with creative.
We're all being very good, and good afternoon again, everyone. And welcome back to the Senate Committee on Government Operations meeting for Friday, February 13th, 2026. Our final item to consider today is a bill we have looked at, S-196. Senator Clarkson is the sponsor of the bill enacting relating to property tax sales. And we're going to have legal counsel Cameron Wood give us again it's a 9-page bill. So how about a 35,000 foot view of the bill, what it does, and then we'll get into actual testing. Yeah, thanks.
And a quick overview of the report that came in.
That is the testing.
Right.
No.
Okay. For the record, Cameron Wood, Office of Legislative Counsel. What I'll do is I'll just jump in. I'll briefly describe what S-196 does, because it really just has a few provisions that can be described pretty easily. Then I'll back up, Mr. Chair, if you'd like, and we can talk about the working group that was created in 2024, and then some of the highlights of the report that came out of Act 106. Okay, so S-196, as mentioned, we've done a walkthrough, but just a quick recap. It would shorten the redemption period after a tax sale. So if you all recall, when you're going through a tax sale process, over the past few years, this body has put in certain conditions that have to exist before a town actually moves forward to a tax sale. So in 2024, you all added that the taxes needed to be delinquent for at least a year. You added some notice requirements that had to go to the individual, and you added in the requirement that the municipality had to offer a reasonable repayment plan to the individual before you could get to the tax sale itself. Last year in Act 73, I'm assuming in response to some of the information in the report, you added another condition that there has to be a minimum of $1,500 due in taxes. Okay.
Right.
So that's the current conditions that exist. Has to be there for a year, $1,500. You have to offer the individual a reasonable repayment plan. If those conditions are met, then the municipality can move forward with the tax sale. At that point in time, the individual has a 1-year redemption period where the individual, as long as they are able to come up with the money that the property sold for, including interest, which accrues at 1% per month, then the individual during that 1-year period can, quote, redeem the property and get it back.
Yep.
This bill, 196, primarily what it would do is it would reduce that redemption period to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would also add in some conditions where either the municipality or the individual who purchases the home at the tax sale can go onto the property and, kind of secure the property during that period, during that redemption period. Currently, a municipality can go on to prevent illegal activity. This bill would expand that to say the municipality can go in and secure the property from damage, exposure to the elements, or deterioration. So it would add those as additional conditions.
The original and the last bill.
And then it adds a new section into statute, which would provide the mortgagee or the lien holder of record with written notice of at least 10 days, after providing those individuals 10 days notice, the purchaser at the tax sale could go on and secure the property for the same reasons that the municipality could. So for illegal activity, to prevent damage, exposure to the elements, or to prevent potential fire hazards. So that is primarily what S-196 does, those two things.
Senator Bielanski.
Maybe this is a question for you. It's the illegal activity piece that is, a lot about this bill has my knuckles up, but the illegal activity piece, what I'm worried could happen when it's not an official of the town or the municipality, and it's the homeowner, is that in responding to what they perceive as illegal activity, it may create some sort of dangerous vigilante type situation where would this language?
I think that is a legitimate concern. Currently, the municipality can do this.
Right, and there's an officialness.
And that's what I was about to say, adding it to the individual purchaser. This is where I think some of those concerns are probably addressed to VLCT. Chris Delia, who I believe was on the report, I think they could
He
probably
was.
speak to the conversations. Legal Aid was on the committee as well. They could probably talk to you about some of those concerns because this provision in particular, the committee recommended against adding. And I think those concerns are probably some of the justification as to why. Keep in mind, during the redemption period, the individual who, we talked about this when I was here last time about bankruptcy. And during the redemption period, for example, an individual can file for bankruptcy, in which case the tax sale process stops and the municipality cannot move forward because the individual has the opportunity to go through the bankruptcy court process and potentially retain the home. And so during the redemption period, the individual who owns the home, the delinquent taxpayer, it is their property. They still own it. They still have all the rights that come with the ownership of that home. They may even live in it. In some cases they may not, but they may. So I imagine those are some of the exact concerns that were raised during the working group.
Okay. So again, for the benefit of those watching on YouTube and for the committee, the members of the working group were Vermont Legal Aid, Vermont Housing Finance Agency, Vermont Association of Listers and Assessors, Central Vermont Office of Economic Opportunity, NeighborWorks, Vermont Municipal Clerks and Treasurers Association, Vermont League of Cities and Towns, Vermont Bankers Association, and the Vermont Bar Association. And I know, Cameron, we have on our website the report from Act 106. I don't know if it makes any sense for me to read what I highlighted when I read it.
I'll run through it if you'd like, Mr. Chair, if that's
Okay.
easier for you.
Yeah, the summary,
Page 5 then,
executive summary.
well, yeah, it starts on page 4, but
And I was trying to share, then if you don't mind,
Chair. Get the request.
it's saying that it's not turned on.
I think the illegal activity, just while they're working that out. My memory was that it had to do with squatters.
oh, I'm sure.
Well, I have really big concerns about handing over random civilians the ability to gauge what is illegal activity and then have to respond to it like that.
It's the town, not
Well, no, right now it's the town. This bill proposes to add the person
the
who purchased.
individual. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't feel good about that.
well, we can always strike that and keep the fire hazard damage and or deterioration.
And I will say there is, if there is, you can bring an ejectment against an individual who is in your home illegally. There is a court process for that. I'm not saying that that's appropriate for an individual who's purchased it to have to go through that, or the individual homeowner to have to go through that. That's for you all, a policy decision, but there is a process to try to expedite an ejectment action against somebody who is there unlawfully.
Even if you don't fully, for me, I think one of the challenges here is that we're dealing with people who think they bought a property, but they don't actually really own it yet, and they don't control it yet. And then what rights do they have? Do they actually have that right to have them ejected, or do they have to petition? I mean, the town has the right. We gave them the town's right.
Senator Bielski.
But, and that is kind of my question is in this instance that we're talking about where the tax sale has happened, it's in this redemption period. Who owns the home?
Exactly.
In that instance, it may actually be the tax delinquent individual. I'm not sure if that's the word I should be using, but that individual who would probably need to bring the action,
Okay.
but
Senator White, did you have a question?
Nope, no question.
Okay, so let's do, if you have it,
Yes,
page
sir.
5. Because what I want to do is kind of drill into some of the provisions of the bill.
yes, sir. Okay.
As Cameron mentioned, issue 3, we've already dealt with that, was the equal to or exceeding the $1,500
Yes, sir.
penalty. And that's already been satisfied here.
Yes, sir.
But issue 4, I think, is where we're beginning to talk about some of the concerns of the committee.
Yes, sir. So you have issue, just briefly, issue 1 and 2. So the first one, they looked at recouping equity following tax sale.
Couldn't make a decision.
Yes, sir. The majority of them recommends that a process be developed, but there is divergence of opinion of what that process looks like. And there is some information further in the report if we get to it today. If not, for those following online, you can find some more detail a few pages down. There in issue 2, there's recommendation about standardizing the process and having a statewide, just here on the first bullet, a statewide education program and resource system for municipalities regarding the tax sale process. This is a municipal process. So while it is outlined in statute, I imagine there could be some divergence across municipalities. So then, Mr. Chair, as you mentioned, we get to issue 3, which was the recommendation of adding in the minimum amount owed of $1,500. You all did that last year in Act 73. And then you get to issue 4, tax sales of blighted or dilapidated properties. And the working group recommended against adopting a shortened time frame to commence a tax sale of blighted or dilapidated properties. And it also discussed further on in the report a concern about how you actually define what is some sort of dilapidated or blighted property, and the concerns about how that how you approach that definition. Issue 5.
Yes.
I am making an assumption here, blighted and dilapidated are probably fairly subjective and not defined well in law and do not necessarily equate to vacant, correct?
I think that is a good assumption. Yes, ma'am. And I think people approaching it are going to assume those are 2 different things. You could have a home that has no structural issues with it whatsoever, where no one's living there and it, has been vacant. Versus you could have a home that has significant structural or habitability issues and somebody is living there. So I would see those as probably 2 separate things.
And is there a legal differentiation anywhere in statute between vacant and abandoned?
Not that I'm aware
Okay.
of.
That
Not,
we can, that I'm sure is defined somewhere. We could probably find it.
I don't know about in the property context because, at the end of the day, right, you have a right to do with the property what you want. So what is vacant to somebody else may be holding for an investment property that they're intending at some point to do with. So, what I mean by that is an abandoned is a field with no dwellings on it vacant. Is it abandoned if no one's doing anything with it? Oh, well, sure,
Because you
but
don't have to secure. a
but
field against
constitutionally,
it.
what does it matter? Like for me, as a property owner with my property rights, what is the difference if it is a piece of property with no structure on it or a piece of property with a structure on it that nobody lives there and I'm choosing to not live there? That is, my property right to do so.
Right, but it may be a hazard to the neighborhood. What I think is what we appreciated, particularly with the Springfield Charter, which is making me think of this, is that a dilapidated property, it sort of depends on the context within which it's experienced. So a dilapidated and vacant, non-code compliant house could be a hazard in a neighborhood. It can, fine, you could be holding it for an investment. But if it's being used by squatters, if there have been fires in it, if it's a hazard to a neighborhood, i.e. there are little children who might go play and fall through the floor, that is a problem. And that becomes then not an individual rights, property rights issue. It becomes a neighborhood health hazard and a
Correct. And
neighborhood hazard.
municipalities have the authority to address those circumstances now.
They do.
But my answer was in the context of, I don't think you have a definition of what is vacant property or abandoned property in the context of property, because
Or
again,
Or
what appears to be abandoned to someone, to the owner, may be abandoned for a specific reason, because if I come onto the property once a year, once every 365 days, is it abandoned? So I don't think there is a definition in the context of property, but again, I don't.
But there may be, because we have the realtor over there We haven't answered all
Yes.
these definitions.
Yes, you do. So, the only thing I will mention is I am aware of a definition of abandoned in the mobile home context. And that's why I stopped sharing, because I was going to pull it up for you. So in Title 10, you do have this definition, which is a resident of a mobile home in a mobile home park is deemed to have abandoned the mobile home if a reasonable person would believe that it's not occupied as a residence, the rent lot is delinquent, and the park owner has attempted to contact them. I think this is, slightly unique in the sense that it's a manufactured house in a manufactured home community, so it's not necessarily the same as real property sitting,
It could be
dwelling
very
in real
similar. I mean,
property.
you could do something very similar, which is somebody has stopped paying their mortgage, somebody stopped paying their tax. And there's nobody living there. I mean, what's different about that?
And
Lot
they've been
rent.
tried to be contacted.
Lot rent could be mortgage.
I don't consider lot rent in a mortgage because you can have a mortgage and lot rent.
Correct. You can,
If
but
that's
if we're
possible.
looking at how to use it with houses, which is what we're talking about here. You can make a very
If you,
similar
it's like a
definition.
condo then would we open it up if you didn't pay your condo fees? What's the
I don't
difference
know,
between
we would have to ask
home?
Peter about whether those go for tax sale. They do, I think.
They do. We've done a few in Hartford.
Okay, so if we could get back to the recommendation.
Bring us back just to here real quick. So issue 4 was about blighted, dilapidated properties.
Right, and they
Recommend against doing anything
shortening the time.
in this piece. Issue 5 is about interest rates. And again, the working group was unable to find a consensus on this topic in particular. There are 2 separate recommendations, one from Vermont Legal Aid and one from Vermont League of Cities and Towns later on in the report about whether or not the interest rate during the redemption period for a tax sale should be more tied to market rates versus what it currently is now, which is the 1% per month, 12%. Issue 6, should the tax sale purchaser be allowed to secure the property during redemption? The working group recommended against this. If you read down the report, kind of because of some of the concerns that we were discussing a bit ago. And then the last issue is issue 7, where the working group recommends that there be a process created to have one entity consolidating information and making that information available online, cataloging it, et cetera, for tax sale processes across the state.
So I jumped ahead and want to take issue 6 apart a little bit, and then we'll be joined by Peter Tucker. So the key points during the discussion about whether the purchaser can get on the property before he or she technically own it are allowing a successful bidder to enter into and take action is disruptive to the delinquent taxpayer, particularly if that delinquent taxpayer is in possession of the tax sale property. It's inconsistent with recognized legal rights. Even a landlord is not allowed to take such action with regard to leased property, except under extreme circumstances. There's no control over what that third party might do while pursuing actions apparently authorized by the suggested language. If the delinquent taxpayer redeems, then any action taken by the bidder may have to be undone. It's also possible the action by the bidder might have further altered the property in ways the taxpayer did not approve. There's particularly strong policy reason to allow such actions on property that is still owned, or there's no particularly strong reason to allow such action on property that is still owned by the delinquent taxpayer and remains subject to a redemption right. Third parties, including bidders, do not have an insurable interest in the tax sale property until the redemption period expires. That would result in a third party entering on the property at their own risk, with the potential for causing injury to the occupants of the property without possibility of the protection of insurance. The underlying concern giving rise to the suggested expansion of rights for the bidder at the tax sale is the possibility of illegal activity on the property during the redemption period, squatters, manufacture or sale of illegal substances. It's unclear how a bidder and a tax sale would secure the property against such activities, et cetera, et cetera. So it seems pretty clear to me, based on the report from the working group, that the bill in question would have to undergo some changes before we could move forward on it. So Cameron, unless you have anything more, unless the committee has questions, I'd like to move on to Peter Tucker. And hopefully by the time Peter's testimony is finished, we'll hear from Chris Delia.
You're right, that would be good. I mean, yeah, it's hard. I don't agree with a lot of the report, which
Well,
is
that may
you know,
be.
part of the challenge.
That's the report.
And yeah, and that's what and I think what this entire discussion is doing is clarifying for me that this is a really challenging,
Mhm.
no man's, no woman's land ownership. It's not an ownership once you, I mean, and I think we would do well to really improve this messy transition, possible transition or not transition of ownership of a property. And I think it's, this report is helpful, but I don't think it answers the fact this is a very murky rights situation, and we could clarify this, that this would be really a benefit to all parties concerned if we made it clearer
I
going forward.
took that to be exactly what the working group said is, right now, we don't think you should do anything, but go to work and change it then.
Yeah, exactly. Go change it.
Okay,
Go change
thanks,
it.
Cameron.
I appreciate you going through the
Yep.
aspects of why they said no to the
Yeah.
bidder, you know, and it is helpful for me to sort of wrap my head around, like, even a landlord who actually does own the building can't do that. And if there's illegal activity going on, I would imagine anyone without statute, call police.
Yeah.
Or call the town. Town may not have,
Or the police,
they don't necessarily have a town.
or the Vermont State. Call
Or the
911.
sheriff.
Or the sheriff. Or their
Especially if they're
real,
Wyndham County and they're a pilot program.
but if they actually
Sorry.
still own the house, they could go and secure it. I
Oh.
mean, if, you know, the original owner can go do it.
Okay. Peter, great to have you join us and sure, bring us up to date with your group and how you all feel about this.
Thank
And
you.
why weren't you on this?
Well, so Peter Tucker, the Director for Advocacy and Public Policy for the Vermont Association of Realtors. And in 24, I actually was part of what was formed as a stakeholder group to, you know, take a look at that tax sales and redemption and that sort of thing. That bill came out, or the work group came out of that work in that session.
Right.
But I was not part of the work group.
Right, this is when we
Was fine.
took up Cheryl's first bill, which prompted this and. I get here.
Right. So, you know, a little bit of background at that point. And, you know, I think that the work that has been done was really good. You know, we did put in this mechanism to make sure that anybody who was delinquent taxpayer was subject to a tax sale potentially had the opportunity to enter into a repayment plan. That was not clear in the you know, the statutes beforehand. You know, one other thing that I learned in that process is there's an attorney, Mr. O'Toole, who does, you know, tax sales for like 25 towns. And what I didn't realize is that, you know, he said in somewhere in the range of 80% of tax sales are redeemed
Yeah.
in that 1
That
year
doesn't
period
shock
of
me.
time. You know, they find a way to get it done and actually end up taking the property. That delinquent taxpayer ends up with the property at the end of the day. So, you know, tax sale, just, you know, purchasing a property at tax sale is risky to begin with. You know, you're making this commitment, tying up capital or whatever. And for that 1 year period, you may not, you know, it may not amount to anything. You know, the property's redeemed by the delinquent taxpayer and they're just out. I thought that, oh, sure.
Senator Green?
In an instance, and I know nothing about how the tax sale process works. So in an instance where the delinquent taxpayer redeems the property, they have to pay back the person. So the person didn't lose the money they tried to buy the property with. It
No,
does have to
no,
go back to them.
Yeah,
Okay.
right, but they are, they tied up their capital for a 1 year period of time.
And there's
you know,
interest that's paid.
Right.
Right, well, and interest would be paid by the delinquent taxpayer.
Correct.
to-
There's interest. They not only don't lose their investment, they also get interest.
Okay,
The other thing that does happen, is that the town is on the hook for education taxes to the state. Regardless of, who owns the property or
Who's paying her.
what part of limbo it's in. So quite honest, when we were talking about, securing for, illegal activities, that's kind of a town-wide thing, right? That hopefully benefits the entire town. But I can tell you, whenever there's a delinquent property going through a tax sale, everybody else is on the hook for, the property taxes due for that particular property to the state ed fund. So wrapping these things up quickly, obviously limits that exposure. I'm here today to say that our government affairs committee met on Monday and we reviewed this bill. And they are supportive of the changes in this bill. That was not something that I thought I was going to say today, but that's why we have, a group of statewide folks that can provide input. And, obviously the big change here is securing the property, allowing somebody to secure the property, whether it's a municipality or the tax lien holder, at that point, for that period of time.
I think this is maybe a council question for legislative council, but we currently do allow the municipality to secure the property, correct?
Right,
Okay.
for what is it? It's for illegal activities. And this expands to, like condition of the property. Damage from exposure to the elements. Okay, go ahead.
No.
I got it. Yeah, okay. Exposure to the elements and deterioration. So those are, and fire hazards. Those are being added to the town's ability to secure for illegal activities.
And I think that was added in 20.
It's, well, it's
It's in the bill.
It's in your bill.
Yeah.
So
Currently,
it's,
currently
We had
it's,
asked to have it added before.
currently it's illegal activity and potential fire hazards. And this would be expanding it
This is
to,
expands it to.
for the municipality to expand it to include damage to exposure and
And
deterioration.
deterioration, right, okay, got it.
Think that aspect makes, I think what we've gone through the bill so far, I think we could probably support that.
Yes.
But
And I understand exactly, yeah.
probably not much of the.
Senator White,
wait, can I just get clarification? My understanding is a municipality can currently do those things.
Two of them.
And they could do
If
fire.
if it's,
And-
Wait, let me just open the camera.
Yeah, sorry.
if it's due to a fire hazard
Yes.
or illegal activity, the municipality currently has the statutory authority to go in and secure the property.
Yes.
What the proposal is to add exposure to the elements, deterioration. Also to then add the ability of the purchaser at the tax sale to do the same, to
Yeah,
do all of
that's-
those things.
That's the difference. I'm not comfortable with the individual.
Sale, but I am comfortable with adding the extra couple things to what the municipality is able to do.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like, I am also absolutely not
Okay, I just
comfortable with
wanted to
the
make sure.
individual doing it.
That makes sense. I think it's where I parse it out for me.
no, I have to say, as much as I was hoping we could move this along for the benefit of my constituent, because she is still my constituent. I have serious concerns about that too. Maybe not for the same reasons,
Sure.
but if that purchaser injures him or herself by walking into the place and they're uninsured and they do damage to the building, I'm just as much concerned about that as I am protecting the rights of the property owner during this period of time. I don't know what the right solution is. Is it a year? So they, in essence, they have 2 years. They have a year before this whole thing kicks in, and then they have a year while the tax sale is pending to wait, in essence.
But that's a lot of time. I mean, we don't have that long to pay our bills.
I
We don't have
understand.
that long to pay other bills. Why are we, and I guess the other piece is the question when you say go on a property and you may damage yourself. Who is insuring the property while it's in this limbo land?
Is it insured?
Yeah, who knows?
I mean, if the delinquent taxpayer the delinquent taxpayer owns that property until the end of the redemption
Right.
period, when they, you know.
So one assumes they're either paying to have it insured. Could conceivably a new purchaser who buys it at tax sale, could they insure it or not? Is there an opportunity for them to insure?
I doubt it because they don't hold ownership.
Exactly.
So you have to fully own it
Yeah.
to insure
I
it.
believe so.
And to be honest, if they can't pay their taxes, I'm not sure they'd be in a position to
I
take
wasn't
an insurance policy out.
Yeah, oh, you mean the original owners?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I think they probably could. If they lived in Woodstock, you could pay your insurance bill much more easily than you could pay your tax bill.
Well, maybe we can carve out Woodstock then.
Yeah, right.
Well,
Of course, though.
I also think to Senator Clarkson's point, sometimes when you're in a difficult financial situation, you prioritize what you can pay, and one might prioritize insuring their home over
Okay,
a tax.
fair point.
I've certainly,
Particularly if you're still living in it. And if you're living in it, then it's unlikely the potential owner, I don't even know what we call the people who buy these things at tax sales.
potential owners.
Crazy people, I mean, I think they're
Is it a
crazy people
team?
doing this. The
Oh,
risk is
oh,
so high. It's worse than a Broadway show, investing in a Broadway show.
But that's not, your risk tolerance may be different than someone else's risk tolerance. If that is in line with their risk tolerance, that's a choice they can make.
So, but also it's not just risk. A lot of people buy these properties because they can afford them. Because they're much less and they invest their heart and soul in it. Because it's the one thing they can afford to buy in the neighborhood they may want to buy in. So what is hard for me in this is the people who are actually buying it, not investors who want it, who could wait out, but the people like Cheryl's son, who it's a big financial, yes, risk. And it's not like they're doing this because they can afford to not have it go through. And they are really desperately hoping that they'll be able to buy this property and affordably renovate it and affordably move into it. So that's what's hard here is this real limbo. You're neither here nor there. You're either own it or you don't own it and you do own it all at the same time. And you have no rights.
I will say that the redemption period was changed by that group in 24 from, it used to be 1 year in advance, you know, that you're in delinquency before you're put in a tax sale, and then 3 years to redeem.
Hmm.
And that, you know, that's where the education tax discussion really kind of, you know, won out.
So
Of
it's
saying,
now 1 and 1.
no, well, it is now
Yeah.
1-1, but it was 3 years of redemption
Right.
previously.
Senator Biegelski.
When was that change made?
24.
So not that long.
No, not.
No, that all became out of some of this discussion that we
Sure.
began
Yeah.
in 23.
Right, but my point is just a couple years ago, we made a change. And generally speaking, I am of the opinion that we should wait to see how a change plays out for a little bit before we make more changes.
I understand.
And I think the committee's decision on this, as is true quite often in this building, is a balance. Are we protecting the rights of folks that are in the position of being delinquent? And are we protecting the rights of someone who is willing to take the risk at a tax sale to step up to the plate and buy? And I don't know, well, based on the recommendations from the working group, it would seem like that group is suggesting we don't do too much monkey. Yes.
I mean, just because this is such a good conversation, I think that if a building is vacant, if what do we call these tax purchasers? You know, I feel I don't have the right name for them, but the people who bought it at tax sale and the building is vacant and somebody buys it.
Successful bidder.
Successful bidder, thank you.
Good.
Successful bidder. And the building is vacant. I think then the successful bidder should have a right to be able to secure property in the ways they aren't currently able to at the moment. Against against the things we have here, and your group agrees, your realtor group agrees with that. Of course.
Yeah, well, if I can give a couple of examples, and these are personal examples. I sold real estate for 25 years before I took on the advocacy role. Had a building, you know, he may have been behind on the mortgage, but, you know, it wasn't a tax sale property. And I represented the buyer. We were within 7 days of closing and the pipes burst. He was off, the pipes burst, and that deal, it was gone. And I don't know whatever had happened to that building. It had another, good buyer
In that case, but the original owner,
was on the hook. They lost their sale because my guy backed out. Yeah,
Right, but
just
that
in terms of, you know, securing the building.
they failed to keep it heated enough,
Right,
so the
right.
pipes burst.
Mhm.
So then they were out.
They're out, yeah, I mean, whatever the damage was, plus whatever you know, he lost the contract on the property. You know, that it doesn't fit precisely into this. When the Government Affairs Committee of the Vermont Association of Realtors met on Monday, and I said, I think that we should not allow for this kind of entry, and I think Senator Mahonsky, you know, that your point is well taken, having just, you know, whoever bought the tax, you know, the tax lien, able to kind of go in and, you know, I mean, there's just so much risk there, right? Well, you know, conflict between the delinquent taxpayer who still lives in the property and somebody trying to.
Let's
Well-
assume that the only thing would be if it was vacant.
Right. You know, my guys want you to be able to secure the property. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. You
Vacant,
know,
How do you know something's
Yeah, how do you
vacant?
know
right.
it's vacant?
because you know if people are living or not living there.
That's
But how
not
does
a really,
once you open the door, you will.
that's not a very legally defensible argument. You just do.
Right.
You know if a building is vacant or not, you
But-
know if people are living there or not.
But I think the issue is there is no statutory or constitutional requirement that you live in property that you own. That's the
That's
issue.
fine, but there are different elements of risk with a building that is vacant. It certainly is able then to have the heat, no heat, and therefore the pipes go off first. It's then raccoons and animals can come and live in it. I mean, there are things that you do not want to have happen, whether you own it or you're the successful bidder. No one wants the building to deteriorate.
But that's why I think allowing the town to do something, and if you're the successful bidder, call the town and ask them to do it. Like, I don't think random people should be having to make up.
These are not random people. These are people who are interested in purchasing a property that is protected.
But from the legal standpoint, they're just any.
They aren't. They're people who invested in that
They
property.
also might have a negative incentive to make sure those people move out quicker. You know what I'm saying? Like imagine the situation, my father purchased the building in Windsor. Wasn't a tax sale, was a regular purchase, totally normal purchase.
Right.
There were people squatting in the location separate from the owners of the property who sold it. In this situation, where it's even more clear that my father was the property owner, extremely dangerous for him to go on the property, had to get law enforcement support. What this bill would do is, let's say he got in a tax sale and he wanted to go knock on the window, he would be totally empowered to do that. That could set up a really negative interaction.
So, would the committee? Thank you to the realtors for supporting this. I appreciate that completely. But would we consider then empowering the town to do what I think all of us would hope with a vacant property would happen, which is protect the vacant property from further deterioration and exposure and elemental damage?
Yeah.
I think
We-
Senator
we
White and I
will-
have both already said we would
Yes.
support the expansion to the municipal rights, but not any
Person.
I am
individual.
hearing that now. I'm hearing the lovely unity of that side of the table with the head of the table. And unity over here with one who has no vote on it.
So, I think that, you know, the direction you're headed into, you know, is, you know, certainly much less opportunity for conflict, right? I mean, you know,
Yes.
having, you know, just the purchaser of the lien. You know, if you did keep that language in there, that person would have to be at risk for their safety if it's a you know, criminal activity or something going on, at risk for any improvements they made to the property. If it gets redeemed, they're kind of, you know, I mean, do they get paid back for it or are they out of luck? I don't know, and I can't speak for the towns, League of Cities and Towns, or whoever would speak for towns. But are towns gonna want to be willing to take that on as well? I'm thinking about, there are low cost things you can do to preserve a home, like making sure that the water is drained, because there is no heat, that aren't super costly, but definitely protect the property. But you have to have somebody that knows what they're doing to do it. They could do it wrong. And then you've got to, you damage the property further. And I just don't know how much towns are going to be willing to take on, and you have to understand that.
I think a town is gonna wanna protect its grand list.
Mhm.
And I think the more deteriorated the property gets, the lower the value of the house is, and the lower the value to the town is. And I think the interest in the town is fewer fires, less damage, protecting grand list, and enabling in large measure the person who owns it. I mean, I think there are a lot of positive reasons a town would want to.
I absolutely think we should probably hear from, I think you said BLC.
Oh, yes,
I think so,
yes.
yeah.
And I hear you, but my understanding is the language in the bill grants the town permission, does not mandate that they do it.
Right.
So each individual municipality can gauge their risk tolerance versus the benefit of doing these things. We're not mandating that they do it.
So my assumption is because I was ready to park it,
I
honest-
know you were,
to be
but
honest,
look, we've had such a
I'm
good
as
conversation. now.
transparent as I can be.
Take
The
that
thing
whole
about
second.
company-
But
That's one second.
I think based on what I'm hearing, and I agree, we should probably take more testimony on this. And if we can move it with some provision changes, maybe we do it that way. And I want to hear from Chris Delia too. I was trying to
Where
get
is
him in
Chris
today.
Delia?
Well, I don't know. What, well,
So I think the LCT and Chris
Okay.
we need to hear from.
so, maybe
Can
we
I,
can add the.
drag out this?
In.
Yeah, and Peter wants to finish his testimony.
Oh,
Says-
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, but
No, don't be
So,
starting.
so, we got, because I do think this is the critical issue, and,
Which is the critical.
the ability to secure the property,
Yes, I
and,
agree.
I hope that my government affairs committee will be okay with me saying, I understand the concern that any individual can go in and do that, but leave that ability with the town at their discretion. I think that you're right. That's exactly what it is. But the part that we fully support is reducing the redemption period from 12 months to 6 months. The reason is, the less education fund money coming out of the town to pay for it. And once again, I'm kind of a little maybe out ahead of myself on this one. But I think, what Senator Clarkson mentioned at the start of this conversation, why do we not just wait until the end of all this stuff and just sell it at the end of, a year and a half, 2 years, whatever you decide is the right period for, because it's 12 months before a tax sale can occur and then 12 months to redeem. Just because just because the town has forced that tax sale on the property doesn't mean that's when the town has to sell it, and if they just waited till the end, a lot of the controversy, it would be
A lot of the pain would
the property
Not necessarily.
potentially could be deteriorating during that period, be it 6 months or 12 months, too much, but,
Yeah.
I think that the certainty that would create is worth exploring at least.
Cause I think as I see this, there's just this, we've created this messy period where it's neither fish nor fowl.
Right.
And a family is, let's say ideally, I'm not ideally, but at its best, this is a family trying to work to save their home. And they have the opportunity, that gives them certainty. And then there isn't this, it just gives everybody more certainty if we gave it 18 months. And then they would either sell it or not. And then there wouldn't be this sort of messy in between.
And remember, if you wanted, I can probably find Mr. O'Toole's contact information. But if he's even close to right, saying, 70-80% of tax sales are actually redeemed, it would save all that, hey, I think I own it, but then I found out I don't really own it because the delinquent taxpayer redeemed it. And just wait till the end.
Turn it away.
Do you have any information about when typically people normally redeem of that
Yeah.
80%? Are they doing it in that first month? Is it coming in
I think
month
it's the
nine?
last day. that's-
Yeah, then so why would you?
I mean, that's a guess on, that's purely a guess on my
So
part.
then they do it last day of the 6 months too. I mean, they
Why?
just like, well, like
Well,
how
they're
many
going
students,
Monday.
everybody works to the deadline. People work to the deadline. If you have a deadline,
You say people work to the deadline,
they
but
do all the time.
they didn't work to the deadline for their taxes.
But the house wasn't going to be taken away from them.
They would
This is
save on
different
interest,
deadline.
you know, there would be some savings the quicker you do it. But you know, do they have the ability to do it? That's
Yeah, I
usually
guess
what-
my point is I'm not hearing a logical argument for why 6 months versus a year is actually going to give people the opportunity to purchase their home at the same way either time is. And while I philosophically can understand the idea that people pay when they are at their last possible moment to pay, I can philosophically see that. Why would we make it 6 months so it's even harder?
They've got a whole bloody year. They've got a whole year to pay their
It's
tax.
just really not enough time. It's not enough time.
18 months
It's
isn't enough
not
time
enough
to figure out
time.
how to pay a bill.
If you are that indebted, no.
If you were,
I
this
know
goes
you haven't,
back
I
to
know you
our
don't have the
original
lived
conversation.
experience of this one, but it can take,
Yeah.
I was disappointed when we moved for 3 years. We had the same argument.
But we weren't on the committee when. we
In
did it.
2024, when
We
you guys made
were,
that
and I don't
decision, yeah.
remember that 3
I
years.
mean, my experience was in House, you know, Ways and Means. That's where I had.
I don't think we made that decision.
We had a whole conversation about this.
We
exact thing.
did, but it was Cheryl's first bill that we were having the first conversation about.
Senator Bihowski.
I appreciate that college students might, work to the deadline, but I'm sorry, if the choices are, I might become homeless the moment I can pay that bill, I'm paying that bill. So I don't know that it is fair to equate homework with the loss of one's home.
I'm just talking about deadlines. I think people work against it.
My
That was
my point is
point.
that I think a lot of people who have the looming threat of losing their home are going to pay that bill as soon as they possibly can.
Okay, why don't I suggest
So
this?
maybe there's data that.
That data
that we've
would be-
asked.
Well, that's what my question was. Do you have any, say,
No.
keep track of that or?
Right, quicker is better.
Next Wednesday, it will be the first item we take
Oh,
up
God.
in case we get into a extended conversation again. And I'm sure we will, and then we have the two charge.
Yeah, they already have quite a few people scheduled to come on the 2 charters, so I don't know if
Oh.
we'll be able to fit it in. Could we do it on Tuesday? Because that's just the 2 introductions.
Do you think you could get data to us by Tuesday?
I can do.
Do you think you could get the
Sure.
data that Becca just asked?
That's a good idea. Okay,
I don't know that that's
I don't
attainable.
think so. That's
Yeah,
what
I
he's
mean, it's
saying.
just,
So you would have to probably do it with an individual town, who track, when do people actually.
It's just
I don't think I was tracking it though. I think it's the
with
question.
PLCT and just dealing right now.
We should probably hear from legally.
are we still on the record?
They might
Yes,
have
They
some
were
of
on
the
the working
data.
group.
Right, but they might have some of the data that
Oh,
Senator White is asking for.
Legally,
But we should ask them that question so they come prepared.
okay.
I mean, there may be other questions, but I realized that if anyone was gonna track that.
Right.
It would probably be, but I do think generally, watching my family, people work against deadlines all the time. And
Cameron.
that's when they pick things.
I just want to clarify one thing, and it may have just been a misinterpretation on my part, Peter, respectfully. The redemption period, as far back as I can tell, has always been 1 year. It
Ah.
wasn't 3 years and then reduced.
Yeah, I know,
So-
we did not do that in this committee, so I don't.
Yeah.
I do know
What
that.
was 3 years?
It wasn't the redemption period. It may, there may have been
It may have been
another
something
provision
else.
that factored into it, but I just wanted to double check for you. And to answer the question, as far as I can tell in the statute, the individual is just simply referred to as the purchaser. The individual who
Okay.
makes the winning bid of the tax sale is just referred to as purchaser
So-
throughout those sections. So
so
there's two things I wanted to.
I would say there in and of itself, that name makes this whole process very murky.
We
We
can
have an
change the
owner.
name.
Yes, we could, but we have an owner and we have a purchaser. Where do we have in our lives something that has dual interest that significant?
In
Mary.
every home sale? You have an owner, you have a purchaser until the closing date and the plan to hand over the keys happens.
Purchaser implies.
It's the limbo piece that,
Yeah,
yeah.
but that
Yeah, but
happens in regular home sales as well. You've sold your home and you've made an agreement with the purchaser that you will move out of
And you're
that home
in
in
contract,
60 days.
but you're not.
But like,
It's also an auction setting. So it's a very different setting
it's a
than
bidding.
most home sales have
Yeah.
been. You know, you're not negotiating with the next homeowner. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, you're not having a real conversation typically as two people, like you do when you purchase a home or work through a realtor. It's a very different situation. In fact, most people walking into home sale auctions don't know if they're going to get the home. They don't know what the cost of the home is going to be. So I think of it, I understand what you're saying with the risk calculus. These are not traditional home purchases in the way that you or I go out and purchase a home. You're entering an auction situation, which in and of itself is also like a completely different thing. If you've been to a car auction before, like, you don't know what you're going to get. You don't even really get to look under the hood. You know, it's a different thing than when you purchase a home and you get an inspection and you get a walkthrough and all of this stuff. It's a different construct. I
I
guess.
also think that you entered into that risk knowing that that was the risk and you made the choice to do so. Whereas the person who's having their home sold at tax sale didn't decide, like, I'd like you to sell my auction off my home.
Yeah.
Like, I do think that there is a level of choice in saying, I understand this is risky. I understand I could walk away at the end of the year and not have, and only be given back what I paid in the interest. And I'm going to do it. I mean, it's the same if I invest in the stock market and I'm like, hey, look, they're here for Bitcoin. I'm like, hey, this seems like a good idea. I'm gonna put some money into Bitcoin. I have no way, like, I purchased this. I have no way of knowing if 1 year from now that is going to have tanked. It's a risk.
I will say, you know, you have, when you purchase real estate conventionally, you have a written contract that
Exactly.
is binding on both parties at the time that it's written, and usually the time frame is 60 to 90 days max. So, you know, it happens a lot faster.
Right, which is why the realtors probably support the notion of 6 months.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
That's where-
and, you know, quite honestly, I mean, I think, you know, for that delinquent taxpayer, that's, you know, less on them, you know, if they can get it done. I have Attorney O'Toole's phone number here, and I would suggest that he would know exactly.
Okay, will you
Yeah,
connect
your
with,
question.
will you connect
I
with
will,
Lynn?
yeah.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
Great,
Appreciate
thank you,
it.
guys.
Well, we delayed as long as we could, but I'm
It's not.
He didn't really want to come down.
gonna bring this weekend a little closer for committee members. So we'll take this up next Wednesday. And so far, we've got VLCT, Chris Delia, Vermont Legal Aid, and Mr. O'Toole, hopefully joining us. Again, Senator Moyle will be back with us next week. So I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, Valentine's Day, and that's something you celebrate. Most people do.
Oh my God, I hope everybody celebrates it. It's a weird density.
Well, I do too. Is there any,
All the people that we love.
is there anything else for the committee today? Okay.
No. Except I do want to say publicly, what a joy it is to have Dan Gotzagen's paintings in our
Oh,
room.
yes, we should.
Yes.
Yes, that is a
But
good.
they-
Paintings? I think they were photographs.
Yes, isn't it?
No, they're
incredible?
painted.
It's nice.
And these are our constituent, Dan Gotzagen, who lives in Heartland, and has done a lot of art in public buildings in Vermont, and he's one of our great painters. And we were having a discussion, and he said, I'd be willing to lend these to us for the rest of the session.
With that in mind, we will adjourn for the day and the week and see you on Tuesday.
Allison wishes.